All right, so with the Day of Reckoning card now over, we move on to the. Obviously, there is fights in the month of January. There's a couple of cards on some good fights too. Definitely some good fights. But we move on now to the main fight, which is, of course, Alexander Usyk Tyson Fury, February the 17th. It's roughly 6 weeks away, a little over 6 weeks, but we are pretty much into, the kind of build up for this fight now. So a lot of the talk is going to be about doing previews, predictions, keys to victory, and stuff like that. And following on from the weekend's Day of Reckoning, all right, and obviously images emerged of Tyson Fury having Moses Athelma in camp for sparring, so he's already started sparring, which is good. And first and foremost, him having young Athelma in there, I think that's brilliant for both guys. One, because Moses is a precocious talent. He really is. And being in a camp like that with someone like Tyson Fury of his caliber, it's going to be a great learning experience for him. For Tyson Fury, he's in there with a young, hungry game heavyweight who has tremendous hand speed. Like, his hand speed is crazy. Good punching power, very good footwork, very talented fighter. So that's going to stand him in good stead. But reports are saying that he is going to have, or trying to get Jay Opetaia in. Now, as good as Athelma is, and he's very good, Jay Opetaia is the number one guy Fury should have in that camp to give himself the best chance for Alexander Usyk and to prepare himself the best for Alexander Usyk. Because when you look at sparring partners, there are certain fighters you look at and you think, oh God, who are you going to get in that's even going to remotely replicate the opponent? With Jay Opetaia, he's not quite Alexander Usyk, but he's not too far from it. His in and out footwork is very good. His shot selection is very good. His speed is very good. His movement is very good. His ring IQ, for me, is not on par with Usyk. However, he is a bigger puncher. But the crucial thing is the foot speed of Jay Opetaia. That's crucial. And that is the one thing about Tyson Fury that I did worry a little bit about. Or I do worry about going to the Usyk fight, because fighters like Steve Cunningham, for example, who've had quick feet, he struggled to pin them down. Now, if he's in camp with someone like Jay Opetaia, and Jay Opetaia is, full blown, right, it's a spar, but I'm going to treat it like a real fight. If he goes hell for leather, then that's going to do Tyson Fury the world of good, in my opinion, right? Because it's going to really it's going to have him prepared best for what he's going to expect with Alexander Usyk, because both guys have tremendously quick feet. They move in and out quite well. They use their feet to good effect. As I said, it's not even just that he's a harder puncher, which I think he is. Pound for pound, he is a bigger puncher than Alexander Usyk, but he's more aggressive than Alexander Usyk. He'll go through the gears a bit more than Alexander Usyk will in terms of getting you hurt, right? And I think that all that is kind of what Tyson Fury needs, right? Yes, you run the risk, and I do worry about Tyson Fury in a sense of there's probably a lot of injuries there, maybe even some that we don't fully know about. A guy of his dimensions, as big as he is, doing the impact training that he does, there's going to be injuries there. And, you could, and it's a valid point, you could argue that having someone like young Moses Athelma in there and Jay Opetaia, if they go into full blown, right, let's do this, that Fury could leave that camp more damaged than he went in. Yeah, he might be ready for the southpaw stance, he might be ready for the quick feet, but he could leave, having been through, a lot of damage. There was a lot of people saying that primarily one of the reasons, because remember when Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder fought in October, they weren't meant to fight in October. That wasn't the original date. The original date for that fight, I don't know the exact date to a T, but it was July 2021 was the date when that fight was going to be taking place. Now, that fight ended up getting pushed back till October. The reason was, or that they gave at the time, was that Tyson Fury tested positive for the ping pong. All right, we'll just use that term, right? That was the reason, right? And that everyone in his camp did. But that didn't quite run with me, because Joseph Parker was in that camp. He was supposedly, the ping pong as well. And he was videotaping himself at UFC events, which he immediately took down. A lot of people felt that one of the reasons was ticket sales were a little bit slow, but also the fact that he had young Jared Anderson in camp. And there was rumours that he was really putting it on Tyson Fury, and that Fury actually needed a bit more time to recover and actually be ready physically for this Wilder fight, because, he wasn't ready in the spars, and the spars were a lot tougher than he thought that they would be. Could something like that happen? I don't know. It's possible. But if you want the best sparring partner that could get you ready for Alexander Usyk, it's got to be Jay Opetaia. As good as Atelma is, and you're going to want to keep him in sparring, certainly. You're going to want to keep him in sparring because he's tremendous and he will give you a lot of help. Jay Opetaia, for me, he is the man Tyson Fury is going to want in that camp. Above any, it's going to want to be Jay Opetaia. I think that for me, that is just, there you go. That's it. For Alexander Usyk, I might do a separate video on Alexander Usyk because I haven't really looked into who he has in sparring yet. But there are a couple of people that I would look at and say, okay, they don't... You see, with Jay Opetaia, you're lucky in a sense that he does so much of what Alexander Usyk does. He doesn't necessarily do it better, but he does a lot of the same things. Whereas when you look at Alexander Usyk, you're trying to look at someone like a Tyson Fury to do all of that, and it's tough going. You're going to want to get guys that are... Some do a little bit of everything, and I can think of a few fighters, I'm not going to name names, but I think of a few fighters who will do that, but will he have them in camp? And again, at the minute, I don't know who he actually has in camp. But there are a couple of fighters that just jump at me straight away. And I was thinking, look, if I was in Alexander Usyk's team, I'd be getting on the phone to this guy. I'd be getting on the phone to this guy. With Tyson Fury, there was only really one name, which was Jay Opetaia, which, by all accounts, it seems like that's going to happen. Again, it's going to stand him in nothing but good stead. The foot speed is the one thing he's really going to have to be wary of in there with Alexander Usyk, amongst other things. But primarily, it's going to be the foot speed. And with someone like Opetaia, who uses his feet very well, who moves in and out, similar to Alexander Usyk, is a bit more aggressive, but does use the in and out movement, good footwork, good foot speed. Getting acclimatized to that with someone like Opetaia, it won't be as big of a shock come fight night. Because I think with Alexander Usyk, some people, they go into training camps, they have their spars with whoever, and it's just so different to what you're getting on fight night. Whereas I think if you have someone who is as near as makes no difference, he's not as good as Usyk in my opinion, but he is the best cruiserweight in the world, Jay Opetaia, it's going to stand you in real good stead. Just depends how brutal those spars are. That's the one thing. Because if those spars are really brutal, you could end up leaving training camp with a bit less. But we'll wait and see. That is my thoughts on that. Let me know who you think. If they're the two main guys that would jump out at me, and obviously a 10 was already in there, who else would you put in camp with Tyson Fury? I really wouldn't think of anyone else other than those two guys, to be honest with you. But if there is, let me know in the comments. If you're Alexander Usyk, who would you get into sparring? Or if you know who he's already sparring, please forgive my ignorance, but I'm not aware of who he's sparring yet. But if you do know, please leave it in the comment section. I can have a look and see, okay, this guy might be this guy might be that. Just because, just with sparring, right? Even if the opponent isn't a noted, even if he's not a top 10 heavyweight or someone like that, it doesn't mean that they're not good sparring partners. You do see these fighters, and how would I describe them? Gym fighters. It's the best way you can describe them. You hear stories, and I've seen gym fighters in person as well, and it does be crazy to see when you look at these fighters in the gym, and the footwork, the shot selection, the movement, everything they're doing and sparring in the gym, it just looks just seamless. But then you see him on fight night and you're like, is this the same fighter? You really are. And I suspect Lyndon Arthur might be one of them. Because you figure against Anthony Yarde in that first fight, yeah, Yarde wasn't the most aggressive, but he looked good in that fight. He won that fight. And that was behind closed doors. That was in December 2020. Behind closed doors, the only people that were allowed in, I don't even know if the promoters were allowed in. I don't remember. But they only had the officials, the doctors, and the punditry team, the commentators and the punditry teams. And that was it. You could literally hear, if you had no commentary, you could still hear the commentary. You could hear everything. You could hear the punditry. You could hear everything that was going on, right? Ringside. I think that if you go and look at some American shows, they don't have the commentary. They just have it from inside the arena. You could still hear the commentary. Even though it's no commentary, that's how quiet it was. It was like being in a gym. And Lyndon Arthur fought well. Fights Anthony Yarde, I think it was October 2021. By then, crowds are back. Hasn't looked the same since. I'm not saying he definitely is, but I suspect he might be. They're gym fighters. Just because they are not the greatest fighter in terms of the professional game, they can do it in the gym. You know, Jesse Ferguson, if you want to go back in time, was a good example. Marius Vac was a very, very popular sparring partner because he would go in there and just take everything. Like David Hay used to say, you'd need a sledgehammer to knock that guy out, and even then, he'd still keep coming. That's a little thing. I always find sparring very interesting, and I always find like people's choices of sparring partners is again very, very interesting because it tells you kind of a lot about what they're thinking and what they're expecting. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed the video, people. Smash the like button if you could. Hit subscribe, of course, if you haven't already. For now, lads and lassies, I will leave you all with that. Peace.